Hello, welcome back to my channel, Rain the Poet, Rants and Reads. I'm Rain, I'm a poet, amongst many other things. So, welcome. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to those of you who have subscribed and liked. I appreciate that so much. So today I am going to be talking about, it's not going to be long. I'm going to be talking about a couple things, right? I did a short about using the terms black person, black people, melanated people, right? So I've heard people, of course, use one or the other or both. I'm one of those people that use both. Now, for me, it is really about meaning, right? So I'm not just frivolously using the word black person, black people, right? There's a reason why I'm using that term. Now, as you guys know, I'm older than a lot of people that are at least popular on YouTube, that are successful on YouTube. I'm 54. So what I'm trying to bring to you that is different is the perspective of someone that has lived 30, 40, 40 years longer than a lot of people who are on here speaking that are being watched by a whole lot of people. I am a YouTube viewer. I watch a lot of people. I watch a lot of different age groups. I respect a lot of different age groups. I can only bring to you, right, my perspective. So, at 54, when I say black people, I am being very specific. When I say black people, I'm talking about the African American descendant of slaves. I'm not talking about people of color, which is inclusive of a whole lot of the world. We're actually not a minority, right? So people of color are not a minority, right? The term people of color is inclusive of lots of people all over the world. When I say black people, I'm talking about the African American who is a descendant of slavery in America. That's what I'm talking about. So when I talk about the issues of black people, what black people deal with on a daily basis, when I say black people, that's who I'm talking about. Okay. Which makes me one of those people. All right. So the term melanated, right? The melanated person, inclusive of a lot of people, around the world, right? So I just want to kind of give a little bit of perspective of where I'm coming from, because being my age, growing up, I was born in 1967. So I'm pretty sure that people were still using Negro colored, right? Negro and colored, right? And of course, a lot of other things that we won't discuss, right? There are people still today using those words, But when people started using the term black people, it wasn't so long after I came to be, right? Or around the time or a little bit before, I don't remember exactly, but I grew up with the term black people, right? When I was growing up, by the time I was conscious of who I was and who I was to the world, who I was to the United States, it was a black person. I did not grow up with the term Negro or colored. My mother did, right? And she was from the South, right? So, growing up in Philadelphia, we were black people. And I still embrace that term. I mean, to me, a lot of people have their opinions about it. And I know a lot of younger people have their opinions about it, and I respect it. I get it. I've heard one young lady that I like to watch, Good Energy, right? A brilliant young woman, said that she doesn't really, care for using the term black person because she feels as though labeling a race by a color kind of strips that race of its origin, of its heritage, So, being of African descent, black does not describe that, so I get it. I get why she chooses to use melanated, that term. But as I said, I do use that term. But for me, that is inclusive of every person of color around the globe. When I say black person, I'm talking about black people in America who are descendants of slaves, right? DOS. Okay. So, yeah, so I just kind of wanted to just talk about that a bit because I don't want, black people as a community, right, to be kind of nitpicking and going back and forth about what we choose to call ourselves or the definitions that we choose to give these words, right? We all have our reasons and we're all coming from different places, right? So, I'm born in 67, people are born in 2000, you know what I'm saying? So, of course, your view is going to be different, but I just want, black people, African Americans, here in America, right, to understand, when I use that term, black person, what I'm talking about, I'm being very specific. I'm talking about a group of people that are descendants of people that came here on the slave ships, right? And those people are our direct ancestors. Right? So people of color, melanated people, I am in, those terms to me are inclusive of everybody, whether they are descendants of slaves in America or not. All right. So, yeah, so another thing that I want to touch upon, cheers. Another thing that I want to touch upon, right, was, another person that I watch a lot, I respect a lot, and we're actually birthday twins. We have the same birthday, September 16th. She's, like 20 years younger than I am. It is Lucid Living TV, right? Lucid Living TV, Ausett, Iowaku, right? So we're birthday twins, and I've been watching her for quite a while, and I knew that, but after our birthday this month, she did a video, a live, And she's like, I'm just watching, and she's like, oh, yesterday was my birthday, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's my birthday twin. So I love and respect Ausett. And, so the sister is deep, she's deep. Like, I thought I was deep, but I'm like, what I'm saying? I'm here deep and she's like deep, so sometimes, she does lose me in thought and everything, but I still enjoy listening to her spiritual work, her, downloads, her spiritual downloads, and but I wanted to kind of talk about something with all due respect to Ausett, because that's what I have for her, is respect, right? But I was listening to her, one of her recent videos. It's not the latest one, I don't think, but one maybe a couple weeks back or something like that, and she was talking about how she was in New York City. Now, I'm from Philadelphia, so I had, been to New York many, many, many times, right? So you could get the train to New York and come back the same day. So I've been to New York, and, she was talking about how crowded, it was at the time. And that she came upon some protesters that were, either a part of or just bringing awareness to Black Lives Matter. So, they had their signs and stuff, I guess, and they were, Black Lives Matters, Black Lives Matters, and she was kind of like taking this in, and and there was some things that she said. One thing that she said, and I'm paraphrasing her because I don't, I respect what people say. So, I don't remember like, in detail, right? But I'm just paraphrasing a couple things that she talked about. One thing that I loved that made me think, and feel, right, was that she said that she felt, I guess, that the people who were protesting, right, bringing awareness to Black Lives Matter, were the voices for, generations ago, right? Sorry, that's my dog. That's how things roll. Okay, there's three of them. Yeah, so she felt that these people were bringing the voices of generations back into the present day, sort of, speaking for those who could not speak at this particular time, right? People who have passed on, but needed a voice, was like they were the spiritual voice of our ancestors, and so I really, I got that, and I understood that, and it made me feel good, because I understood what she was saying. One thing that she said that kind of, I was just like, I'm not really sure how I feel about this, but, she said, well, Black people, don't have any, we don't have any real problems right now. Like, we live in a time, in other words, is what I think she was saying, that, of course, we have opportunities and the space and the freedom to live pretty much right as we, can make a choice to live, right? That the same things that say were difficult for my mother, right, who was born in 45. My mother was born in 1945, right? She's passed on, but too young. But so the same challenges that my mother had, I didn't have. I grew up in privilege, really. When I came along, my parents had, good careers. They made really good money. We lived in nice houses. We lived in a really nice neighborhood. We went to nice places. So I grew up in a privileged black environment, right? So there is a part of me that is in agreement with that, because everything that I've wanted to do, I've been able to do. I can't say that, especially growing up in Philly, that I was addressed by prejudice or racism. It certainly existed. Believe me, it exists in the North, the East, South, West, but it's quiet, more quiet, and more hidden. I think it's much more open in the South, being someone who has been in the South many times, because my mother was from the South, right? My family is in the South. So I get what Ausett was saying, that yes, it is different. Things are different, but I don't fully agree with, well, black people don't really have any problems right now. And she did mention, she did mention, of course, like, I'm not talking about, the violence of like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, like she did definitely mention that, those things, are horrific, not acceptable, right? Not acceptable. But for the most part, I guess she feels, that things that pretty much, if we want to do something, we can do it. You know what I'm saying? Me walking down the street in Philly or New York is much different than in my mother's generation, when she was young, her walking down the streets of, South Carolina, Georgia, or even Philly. I don't know how Philly was then. So I get where she was coming from with that, and that we as black people can begin to acknowledge, right, that a lot of what we say and do now, as far as the fight, right, as far as the movement goes, we are the voices of those who, are not here, right? They're not within this earth plane anymore. We're the voices of the ancestors, really, as a person who's a poet, and I've written a million poems about the black experience in America in the past, because my mother was an activist. So she she let a lot of that go once she had me, because she knew she had a child to protect now, but she was an activist. She was out there, in the streets, getting hosed, and dogs, thrown on her, and all that stuff, thrown in jail, just to sit there until we feel like you can go. My mother went through all of that. Okay. So did I? No. My life was nothing like my mother's life was when she was growing up, right? So, I guess we can get to a point where we can acknowledge, right, that things are different, that, there are things that are better, that we can move through life, right, with some sense of freedom, Um, and of course, power comes from within, right? I just feel that as a Black person of privilege, that I cannot forget or leave behind those who still do live impoverished in many ways, not just financially impoverished, right? But impoverished in a way that they were never taught to dream, to imagine, to desire. They live in such spaces that oftentimes they don't feel human. Look how the projects are built. You know, they're not built so that you can look around you and dream and imagine and make goals for yourself. You know, they're not even built that way. They're built like prisons. You know, fortunately, Philadelphia knocked down most all the projects. You know, and instead built low income housing that looked like houses and had yards for kids to play in so people can feel human. You know, so being privileged, I cannot forget that. I cannot forget that in some areas that Black people still do struggle, that Black people still have daily struggles. You know, I cannot forget that Black men, to me, in my opinion, have more struggles than Black women. Like, I can get away, you know, with a lot of things being just a woman, period. Being just a woman, you know, that a Black man could not do in peace, you know, could not live the same way in peace. You know, so as a woman, right, I feel I have an advantage. You know, it's like some people might look at me and be like, yeah, you know, she's one of them, but, you know, she's a woman. You know, I don't feel threatened by her. Let me put it that way. I don't feel so threatened by her. She's not, you know, 6'4" and, you know, like my brother, you know, who wouldn't hurt a fly, but, you know, white women cross the street. So I just wanted to respond to that video simply to say that, yes, we can begin to embrace that things are different, that there is a level of freedom, right? But I can't just leave behind my brothers and sisters that were not born into the situation that I was born into, which is one that was of opportunity. You know, I was able to pursue education. I was able to work and make a lot of money to, you know, get raises and promotions and all that stuff in the old paradigm, right? In the old paradigm. You know, I feel like, you know, there's still a lot of work to do. And I'm not saying that Ausett doesn't feel that same way. I'm just kind of expressing that I understand what she's saying, but I also understand how I feel, and I also understand what I see. And that, yes, a lot of the embracing, right, of freedom is something that happens within. But if you don't have the tools and you don't have the environment, right, how do you do that? You know, if your mother doesn't feel free and your grandmother doesn't feel free, how are you going to feel free? You know, to me, that has to be something that is in some form experienced, right? You know, in some way, for you to be able to embrace it for yourself. You know, I was fortunate, but not every Black person grew up like I did. You know, so, you know, I don't want to just like put all of that on them and say, hey, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you know, when some people don't have bootstraps. Don't even have bootstraps. You know, people are always like, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. But you got to have bootstraps, right, to pull yourself up by them. So does everybody have that? No. And there's a gazillion reasons. Like if I tried to even tackle some of the reasons why there are Black people that cannot move about through this world in a state of freedom, this will go on forever. So, I won't be doing that on this video, but y'all know what I'm saying. So, anyway, yeah. So, I talked about two of my faves, Good Energy. That's ENRGI, right? Good Energy. I'm sure a lot of you, maybe if you're watching me, you might know her, right? Already, you know. So I don't know how this algorithm thing works. I really don't. And Lucid Living TV with Ausett, right? So, yeah, so that's all I want to talk about today. I'm going to go chill. And I hope you can do the same. If you enjoy anything that, you know, I'm saying, bringing to you my perspective of things, you know, any of that, you know, subscribe. Hit the like button. Help a sister out. You know, help a sister out. So, yeah, anyway, thank you guys, and peace. See you later.